What is up, guys? Rick Kackis here, and this is MTashed. And today we have a Destiny debate. There are certain topics within Destiny 2 that are certainly causing a lot of conflict within the community. So we thought, hey, we're going to take those topics head on and literally just hash them out. And today's big topic is going to be sunsetting, specifically like gear sunsetting, your armor and weapons going away, so to speak, not being viable in the end game, but still being in the game, which is a whole topic of itself. But in any event, what we're going to do is I'm going to be of the perspective of pro sunsetting. I'm going to be arguing for sunsetting. Now, it should be noted that I don't think any of us are like 100% for or against. I'm playing devil's advocate in certain aspects, and you will be too.
Right.
But hey, it's a debate. You're not going to be wishy-washy over here.
For sure.
And he's going to be anti-sunsetting.
So, really quickly before we start, what's sunsetting?
All right. Now, what a good question for our viewers who might be new to what's going on. Now, sunsetting is essentially the process of, well, it's a lot of the game going away, but again, we're specifically focusing on weapons and armor. Essentially, weapons and armor within Destiny 2 that have come from seasons past. So the Shadowkeep expansion and, beyond that especially, they are not going to be able to have their light levels infused above the current season of arrivals. So you can use them now in the end game, in the raids, all of that stuff, but if you want to use them in Beyond Light, in those end game activities, in the new raid, you're going to be at a substantial disadvantage.
Yeah,
so essentially,
that's like Revoker, Recluse, Mountaintop, a lot of weapons that are really popular
Pinnacle
right now.
weapons.
You essentially can't use them in PvE going forward, or even Trials of Osiris or
Iron Banner. Yeah, so that's the topic. And first of all, it's a great idea, because all you do is complain about balance, and they're finally taking out all the unbalanced stuff in the game. Like, what do you want?
Right. Okay, fair enough. In PvP, maybe. But in PvE, if someone spends a bunch of hours getting the Mountaintop, why aren't they allowed to use the Mountaintop?
They are. They just won't be able to do the raid with it.
Yeah, but Nightfalls, they won't be able to touch those. Like, really hard content that maybe they want to use their Mountaintop. Yeah, now they can't use it.
All right, so I know you act like PvP balance is the only thing that matters, and so does Bungie. But things are completely overpowered and unbalanced within PvE as well. And the Mountaintop is kind of one of those things. It makes every other grenade launcher pointless. Now, Bungie should definitely introduce a type of grenade launcher or perk that makes it so that it explodes on direct impact when you hit the ground. It doesn't bounce. I think that's the main reason. But in any event, like, Mountaintop is everywhere in PvE as well. So there needs to be meta shakeups in that part of the game too.
Fair. Now, we've seen almost sunsetting because they do like balance changes all the time, right?
Yeah.
Like they essentially make a weapon archetype obsolete, or they make one super strong.
There's no such thing as subtle within Bungie.
No, exactly.
It's either overpowered or useless.
So is there not a way that we can maybe, subtly change these things so we can still use them? I know that the Recluse is like a really cool, unique weapon, and yes, it's been broken in the past, but to have it be essentially deleted from the game, what are you going to replace that stuff with?
All right, so that's kind of a two-part question you're throwing at me.
It's a combo.
But I'm prepared for it. Let me tell you, part one, why can't they just nerf this stuff if it's overpowered? That's a good point, but it's also, when they do that, right? When they nerfed Recluse, when they nerfed certain things, right? Everyone complains. Like, when they nerfed Recluse, all you did was cry about how, long you had to spend getting the Recluse.
Right.
And then now it's bad. And so people get very upset when they nerf these guns. So sunsetting is kind of a way to, hey, it can still retain that power. You can still use that weapon in, quick play, in strikes, and those type of activities. Use it at its full potential. They don't need to nerf it. But at the same time, they don't have to worry about it being the only choice going forward for other activities. But don't you think that, and you kind of asked me what they're going to replace it with. Right?
Yeah.
And so the interesting part about that is, okay, let's say they introduced a weapon very similar to Mountaintop or very similar to Recluse. Maybe different. It activates in different ways. Something like that. A Mountaintop, but it was proximity detonation, but it did a ton of damage. But it turned out it was just a little bit worse than the Mountaintop. It was very good, but just a little bit worse. Like, the way Destiny works, you're so often trying to go for best in slot that it kind of limits, like, if you come out with a cool pinnacle weapon, but it's just a tad worse than what already exists, you just keep using what already exists, right?
Right.
And if you have sunsetting, you still get those new, cool, different weapons that maybe are just a smidge less powerful. They will still get use.
Right. I just feel like right now, one of the reasons why everyone uses the pinnacle weapons is because they are so cool and they are so strong, and they are stronger than everything else. But a lot of the perks and guns available are just boring. Kill clip, an outlaw, multi-kill clip, feeding frenzy. It's always the same thing. You know what I mean?
You don't like reloading faster and getting a damage bonus?
Yeah, but it's just like, it's so boring and basic. I really like how the Recluse, initially, you got some kills with it, or you got kills with different weapons, and then you were just murdering everything. That's such a cool feeling in the game, and I feel like if they take away some of those cool weapons, what if they don't replace it? Because sometimes Bungie doesn't. They're not there, super creative with a lot of their perks. Like, oh wow, in-air accuracy, incredible. It's not that fun to play.
Yeah, they're pretty boring with their perks, in fairness, with legendaries. With exotics, however, I don't know, whoever those two different teams are, the exotics people are like just, going off the walls, baby, because they're like, the ruinous effigy is like turning people into orbs, and then like, what is that? That's wild. But I agree with legendary weapons is a lot more grounded. I think, honestly, that's just a good point. Like, if they're taking away all these pinnacle weapons, there needs to be something that's gonna replace that.
Right.
There needs to be something that people can actually look to say, hey, yes, we lost the Mountaintop. Yes, we lost the Recluse. But now there's new pinnacle weapons that are also powerful, and it's okay that these are going away because they're being replaced with something else later down the line. And there's just always going to be like meta pinnacles.
But are there new pinnacles? Like, do we
I
even
don't
know
that? That's
right?
what I'm saying.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, we work all these hours to get these really cool things. What if they don't replace it with something really cool? And is there anything wrong with spending 200 hours in Gambit to get the breakneck, and then a couple, hours here?
Yeah.
Like, is there anything wrong with, like...
Yeah, you are. That is wrong because you're spending time in Gambit.
Okay, fair.
Got him!
But like, if you're spending all this time to get these cool weapons, why can't you make this cracked loadout where you've got like 2 pinnacle weapons and then an exotic, or even 3 pinnacle weapons because they're so good? I'd rather chase really cool stuff and then get to keep it and use it than always be replacing it and running out of, guns.
Like, I see your point, but it's wrong. And I'll tell you why. Because the problem with pinnacles is, so I think pinnacles themselves were a band-aid to fix a problematic power structure when they were first introduced. Like, the first pinnacles were in Warmind, right? And Warmind was the first, like, the ship started to turn, if you will, because when Destiny 2 launched, one of the main complaints, and this is, like, admitted by Bungie, like, everyone agrees on this, is that there was a severe lack of power. You felt less powerful than Destiny 1, specials went away, everything took longer to regenerate, all of that stuff, and in Warmind, you start to see this be addressed. The escalation weapons, especially the shotgun, were very powerful. You had the first pinnacle weapons, like the Despacito pulse rifle. Yeah, Redrix, very powerful, very good. Stuff like that, right? And again, this was kind of a band-aid for like, okay, everyone says they're too weak, right? So let's introduce some much more powerful weapons. And again, at the time, it was still the double primary system. So obviously you'd have just a really powerful primary with the Redrix. And as part of the reason the Whisper of the Worm was so cracked out of its mind, it's because you had to have 2 primaries and then the Whisper. So the Whisper was your only heavy. You couldn't have like the Whisper and a special and a primary. Right? And so again, it was just like, we need more power. We need to make these powerful things. And they did that. But the consequence of that is that really pinnacle weapons make all legendary weapons obsolete.
Fair.
It's like no legendary weapon out there is going to be as cracked as the Mountaintop in terms of a special. Pretty much no legendary weapon is going to beat the Recluse in terms of a primary, right? Like really, like even if you get like a Feeding Frenzy multi-kill clip AR, which is like really good. I mean, the current Iron Banner one, like the Forward Path I'm trying to get personally. Like, is that better than the Recluse at its prime? No, it's better. And so it's like, why would you ever use? It's just like legendaries turn into essentially what blues are, where you don't have any. You never use blues really in terms of weapons,
right?
And legendaries would become that. where it's just like as soon as you get a pinnacle, it's better than every legendary.
Gotcha. So you're thinking like we have these powerful things, and it's just limiting our choices to use in the game.
Pretty much, yeah.
But doesn't that just mean that all of our legendary gear is boring as hell?
I mean, hey,
kinda. Like, do we need to start getting more interesting stuff?
Man,
because I'll give you an example. So Redrix right now is going to get sunset, right? Because it is a pinnacle weapon. But even the Cold Denial pulse rifle, in a lot of cases, I would say Cold Denial is actually a better pulse rifle. But Redrix is like really unique. You know, Cold Denial is consistent. You can get Swashbuckler on there and do some crazy stuff. And, you know, Redrix, when
Headseeker Killing Wind is better. What do you want about?
No, listen, I like to use the Celestial Fire and destroy people.
All right, fine.
But Cold Denial, super good pulse rifle. If I was in a, battle for my life, I'd probably use Cold Denial because I'm consistent with it. I like it. But Redrix is really unique, and it is really strong. And, when it is procced and it is working, it's incredible. But it's not like this brokenly overpowered thing where everyone's using Redrix. Is there a way we can start getting some pinnacle weapons that are unique and they're valuable, kind of like an exotic, but they're not breaking the game?
I mean, yeah, that's a good point. Like, you are right. If Bungie could find a way to introduce pinnacles that were not necessarily just powerful, but that were unique and special and had niche roles,
right?
Yeah, that would be amazing, right? But they haven't. And it's a really tricky thing to do that. Like, really tricky to have that balance in that way.
Yeah.
Right? Like, Mountaintop is certainly unique, but its uniqueness leads to its incredible power. So, it's kind of... Like, you're right, hypothetically. That's the problem, is, like, everything's very hypothetical. It's like, why can't Bungie just do that? Like, coming up, if I was, like, you, or any of you watching, come up with a pinnacle weapon that's unique but not powerful. You probably, in your mind, you're like, oh, I could do that. Then you do it, and you're like, oh, wait, it's really powerful. Got to tune this and tune that. And then suddenly you've spent, like, 4 months of time trying to balance this pinnacle weapon or whatever, and it's like... And then the DLC's shipping, and you got to put it out, and so it's a very complicated thing. Like, exotics are naturally balanced in the fact that you can only use one. The fact that you can have like a whole loadout of pinnacles that are cracked out of their minds, like I think that's part of the problem that they're going away.
Right. Okay, so then I have a question for you, and the people in chat, maybe leave a comment down below. Do you want pinnacles to be these powerful ass things, right? They are breaking the game, but you only have them for 1 year. And we know this going in. Like, do you like that system where it's like crazy powerful stuff, but then, all right, you had fun with it and you're gone?
And that's my hope. That's, like you said, Bungie's going to have to actually replace them. And I agree with you on that part. It's like if they take away pinnacles and they take away all of our... It's not just pinnacles. It's like all the cracked weapons that we had... like going back, right? Like spare rations is just a very solid weapon, and people spend a lot of time getting that perfect roll. If those are going away, something needs to come to the forefront to replace those. Like, it can't just like all your favorite stuff goes away and you got a bunch more Feeding Frenzy, Kill Clip stuff, and that's it, right? So if they do reintroduce pinnacles, and like you said, then they're very powerful and they only last for a year, and that's just the new meta, I'm much more okay with that. But yeah, if that doesn't happen, I would agree. It's just kind of like a feels bad moment for, hey, you stuck around the game for a bunch and you spent a lot of time in it, idiot.
Well, I know, and because it's always different for us, because like we're content creators that have a lot of time to play, and so it's just like, I don't want someone in my audience to quit the game because, oh, they took this away, and then they don't even give them something cool to replace it. Like, that's my biggest worry, is like, people put all these hours in to have these cracked weapons, and I know that maybe Mountaintop is OP or Recluse was OP, but then you take them away, and then it's like, here's your little sidearm. Like, okay, Bungie, woo.
Yeah, the ritual weapons.
Here we go.
They replaced them with ritual weapons, and then ritual weapons themselves got yeeted like that axe. They're like, hey guys, here's the solution, and they're like, you know what? Never mind, it's gone entirely. Like, come on, you can make some pinnacle weapon or some ritual weapons. Like, why'd they have to axe those?
Yeah.
Like the Randy's is like, that was kind of unique. Like, Randy's is the only fast firing kinetic of that like scout rifle, right? Like, there's certain things they could do with that. And they just kind of axe that right away.
Yeah. And the other thing I'm thinking of too is with that stuff is like, if you don't have a ton of time to play, you have a direct path to one of the best weapons in the game in the pinnacle weapons.
Yeah,
right?
you can go after
I know,
it,
like, hey, I want to play some PvP. I need a good weapon. I'll go get Luna's Hell. Maybe not so much now, but back in the day, it was like, all right, I've got a hand cannon, and, I can hunt down the Recluse for PvE, and there's these different weapons that you could chase down, and you had a direct way to get, a really, really good roll. So it felt valuable for your time. And it's just like, it's so tough for me because I know I've played so many games in the past where I've hunted down these like really good items and these things that I've been aspiring to get, and then it's like, oh, by the way, it's trash now. You can't use it.
Yeah, I know that feels bad. I think the only solution is to do what I suggested in a previous video, is to make them exotic.
Oh, wow, that is good. Maybe you should go click that video with the link in the description.
Hey, I'll put it in there. No, but seriously, I mean, like, that is a radical solution, but it's a solution that, like, okay, you spent a lot of time getting the mountaintop, and that's one of the main reasons, like, people are upset it's going away. It's like, okay, I spent a month getting this stupid weapon, and then I get it, and then a couple months later, they announce weapon retirement, right? And it's like, oh, that sucks, right? Mm-hmm. So if you did make those exotics, it would, like, first of all, nerf them in a way because you can only use one exotic. So are you going to give up your slot to the mountaintop, right? And in a lot of cases, no. But at the same time, you have that exotic. I mean, pinnacles for the most part are basically exotics. They have like essentially exotic perks, but are legendary. Right. That's why they're so powerful. And then you would be able to infuse it upwards because it's exotic. You wouldn't lose anything per se. If you really wanted to use it, you could still use it. I think that is a potential solution. And they did it before with the raid weapons in Age of Triumph for Destiny 1. You couldn't have elemental raid weapons because they changed how the system worked, right, and elemental primaries, and so they just made them exotic. Right. And then that solved the problem. And even then, those were even less powerful than pinnacles because they didn't have unique perks, but often they're so good, it'd be worth using an exotic Fatebringer, for example, because it was just so powerful.
Right. Fair.
So I that's a pretty radical idea, but it's like one of those things where, hey, maybe they should look at it. And again, that would be a solution. That would be a good solution, especially if they, as we said, didn't have more pinnacles down the pipeline. Mm-hmm. If they are looking to constantly be replacing stuff, that's a different story. I don't think it's as urgent. But if they're not, that could be a feels bad moment.
Right. I mean, I guess the only thing is I do hate dying to mountaintop in PvP, so I can see why, but some things do need to get, thrown into the...
Who doesn't? But I think that's, turning it exotic, you'd see it less because you'd have to give up other stuff.
That's true.
You couldn't use it in conjunction with something else cracked like the Wardcliff Coil. You'd have to choose one or the other.
Right, that's fair, yeah.
Right? True. So, I mean, and PvE as well. You couldn't have Anarchy and Mountaintop. You'd have to pick one or the other. Okay, I'm not tooting my own horn too much. I'm just saying it's a potential solution.
Right.
But what do you guys think? Now, here's the important part. Right now, both of our codes, code KHD and code MTASH, are 20% off at advance.gg. Link in the description. Whoever you think won, put your money where your mouth is. Do you agree with me that sunsetting could be healthy for the game? I can't believe I just said that because most people are going to disagree. But if you think I made some good points, code KHD. If you think he made some great points, code MTASH. And that's all for the video. Hope you guys enjoyed, found this interesting. If you did, please remember to help us out by subscribing to both of our channels and also sharing and supporting this video. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in, and see ya.